Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
I like that. Makes me feel like a school teacher. Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining us. This is the May 11th edition of our second Wednesday safety session. We are coming to you live from the offices of Styles Construction. I want to thank the entire Styles team for being so generous and allowing us to broadcast here. Great facilities. And I also want to introduce myself. My name is Carlos Carrillo. I'm the Executive Director of the South Florida AGC. So thank you to those of you who are joining us in person and those of you who are joining us online. I want to start off by thanking all those folks that allow us to present our second Wednesday safety sessions to you. I want to thank the team at Kelly Cronenberg for their help. They're behind the scenes making sure that our tech runs properly. Tim and Cedric, thank you guys very much. I also want to thank Safe Right Solutions, who provides us with breakfast each month. Thank you to Safe Right. And I also want to say thank you to our title sponsor, Milwaukee Tools. Milwaukee has been a big supporter of our safety sessions. They've been the prime sponsor of our safety sessions now for 2 years, and we're very grateful to them for their assistance. While I got you all paying attention, I want to bring up our upcoming events. This is a busy month before we get to the summer months. Before I get to what's going on, though, I want to say thank you to all of you that came out to our Contractors and Clays event at the end of last month. It was an incredible event. We sold it out again. It was fantastic. And we're actually looking forward to adding a second course to it next year. So we're going to be opening it up. So make sure that you mark it on your calendar. I believe it's going to be the third Friday of April. And as soon as we have information on that, we will send you a save the date. But we're going back to Quail Creek Sporting Ranch. It was a fantastic time. And thank you all very much for making it happen. And thank you to our title sponsors, Titan, for helping us make that event happen. So really quickly, this Friday, we're going to be in Orlando. We're going to be with Kevin Thibault, who is the CEO of the Greater Orlando Airport Authority. Incredible guy. He was the director. He was the transportation director for the state of Florida, running FDOT. Now he's over at MCO, is the large airport. So much going on in that airport and what they're able to do. So it's going to be a really exciting luncheon to hear what he has planned. So if you're looking at working in the Central Florida area, this is a great opportunity for you to do that. And if you're in Central Florida, as many of our members are, make sure that you come out and join us. We'll be at Ruth's Chris for lunch, and that is the Ruth's Chris on Sand Lake Road this Friday. Next Thursday, we're having another one of our wine events. The topic is going to be inflation. This event is conducted via Zoom, and being that the topic is inflation, I have a feeling it's going to be more like a group therapy session. So we're going to have wine. We're going to be talking. If someone cries, we accept you. It's okay. So it's all good. So make sure you join us for that on Thursday. We still have a few bottles of wine left, but if you want to get it delivered to your home, you have to register by Tuesday. And finally, on Thursday, the 26th, our Young Constructors Forum, which is a place for young leaders in the industry, folks in their late 20s, early 30s, to come out, do some peer-to-peer networking. They're going to be at Nexus Shooting in Davie. You can check out that event and all of our other events on our website, sfagc.org, sfagc.org. Oh, by the way, that Young Constructors Forum event is going to be awesome. We're going to have a food truck out there. It's going to be a really, really good time. So every May, our focus shifts over to heat safety. About 2 years ago, we did heat safety prevention. And last year we discussed innovative products to help in heat stress prevention. This year, we wanted to change things up a little bit and discuss what to do should someone become ill from heat stress on your job site. We reached out to our friends, fellow member firm, Concentra, and they in turn connected us with Dr. Bichara and their team. Dr. Arnoldo Bichara, who is here with us, is the Associate Director of Medical Operations at Concentra, and he will be discussing how to identify the different stages of heat illness and how to react to it. So, Dr. Bichara, if you could, come on up. Grateful to have you here with us, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate all your time. In order to talk about what to do at the job site, we also need to go back to the basics, see what is the heat stress and what are the stages or the different things that we can have in those circumstances to see how can we work together to make that person better. Again, going back to the basics is still prevention. We like to talk about being ahead of the game and making sure nobody gets sick. But in the event that that happens, there are certain things, limited things that can be done at the job site at the same time or simultaneously while you're calling for medical assistance. So that's my presentation. It's going to be a little bit of an overview of the different stages and when are we at risk and why are we at risk, and a little bit of heat-related conditions and what to do. Again, the different type of high temperatures can be at the job site or in our conditions. We have to look at the different type of body types that we have in the different employees and what are the conditions that are working on. And the type of clothes based on that type of description of their job that they have to be doing. We have environmental factors, ambient air temperature, radiant heat, air movement, conduction, and relative humidity. The more humidity that there is in the environment, there's also the higher chances to have a heat-related event. Again, the elements of that can lead to heat stress. It's the environmental heat and what we call conduction and convection. Conduction is basically when we touch something or something touches us that directly contact, that elevates the temperature. But convection is when there is a fluid, which can be any type of water, but the air in certain circumstances. And that will be the convection. I think there's a little more information here that we can work on, but I think that the most important things is what are we going to be doing? The main responses of our body to heat is to try to cool us off. And the medium in which that happens is that the blood needs to be cooled off. So there is a shift usually when there's a heat event in which the blood goes to the skin, because that's the outer part of our body that can be cooled off by the environment. So that's one of the first, that circulatory shift. Also, we have sweating. And the fact that sweating actually works is because not necessarily it's just the water outside of our body, but when it dries out, that provides some cooling effect. Also, the heart rate increases to provide all those shifts that they happen. So how does the body handles heat? What we know, as I said, is there is a shift from the main parts of the body to the skin that decreases the blood flow to the brain, that decreases the blood flow to the heart, decrease the blood flow to the muscles, in which they need a good blood flow to operate normally. If the employee is working in a very heated environment and they're not hydrating properly, this shift starts to happen, and that causes muscle fatigue, muscle cramps that we're going to see a little bit further down the presentation. The brain also starts losing their normal functions. There may be decreased alertness, and that be prone to accidents, that the concentration lowers, and so on and so forth. And then the amount of sweat can also provide different working conditions if it's a profuse sweating, but we don't necessarily see that all the time. They have a lot of clothes in, they're wiping their foreheads, they're wiping the body, so we don't really necessarily see that. Are these persons at risk? Of course. And outdoors, whenever there's a construction or a company that do a lot of construction, and that's why we are more prone to have this type of situations. Mining, it's another one, and asbestos and hazardous waste removal. For our part in construction, there is high physical exertion, that there is direct contact with hot objects, depending on what we are doing and how we are handling everything in our environment. and many times the use of protective clothing that had to be very thick and is not really good for decreasing the temperature of our body. One of the main things that that may put our employees to risk is the hot air, as I mentioned before, the humidity of the air, or sometimes when there's no air moving. They are in an enclosed space and there's no way for them to cool off properly. Direct contact with hot objects, it may be machinery that it's big trucks or any machinery that is obviously providing some heat relief from the vents, and it's also heating the environment around them. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there is certain conditions proper or specific to the employees that they may put them at risk. Overweight or obesity, that's one of them. Just biologically speaking about the thickness of the certain parts of the body due to the fat that may increase the body temperature. Older age, but that is mostly because they have more difficulty regulating body heat or body temperature. The level of physical fitness, the body exerts more, has to do a lot more in order to be able to do the necessary tasks that they're required to. So they actually work more. Importantly enough, if they're on some sort of medications, if they have pre-existing medical conditions, hypertension, they may be on water pills. The water pills obviously make you go to the bathroom a little bit more, and the amount of circulating blood flow has decreased. So they are more prone to get dehydrated, and in that event, they go into other things. Alcohol use, hopefully they don't come drunk or after drinking to the job site, but that's a possibility. And that's something that unfortunately we cannot manage, which can only provide recommendations to them in that regard. Drug use or any other problems. Heart problems, as I mentioned, and it's related to the type of medications that they may be on. The most important one is heat stroke, and that is a medical emergency. This is a point in which the body can no longer regulate the body temperature because they're too dehydrated, or they have reached to a point in which none of those mechanisms can fast enough compensate them. And that's when organ failure starts to happen. Body temperature, usually more than 105 degrees. If we remember and we see everything, that when the temperature is 103, 104, in many people, especially in children, they can start developing seizures and stuff like that. That is because the body is not able to regulate properly. And this is the core body temperature. So that means the temperature outside is way beyond that point. So it can cause death. So for the heat stroke, especially, what are the signs and symptoms? You're gonna see that in this next 5 slides, everything is basically the same or very similar. They're gonna have similar clinical presentations of the employee, and the treatment at the job site is mostly the same with a little bit of variance. So we have heat stroke, in which we have confusion, we have irrational behavior because of the same thing. We spoke about the decreased blood flow to the brain, so this decreases the alertness. They may be doing tasks that they're not supposed to be doing because they're confused. There's a point that they can have seizures and also loss of consciousness. Other things that are here, the lack of sweating, that is a point in which they are so dehydrated that they cannot produce any more sweat. That is very extreme, and it doesn't happen in all patients with heat stroke. And we should not wait for that to happen, right? What to do? Immediately try to alert any type of emergency services, right? We can do at the job site, put them in a shady area, get them out of the sun or out of that elevated temperature, and also try to remove all clothing. They're usually in a place that they may be protected from the sun, so they have some certain coverages. So they need to be removed because that increases the body temperature regularly. And also it means fan the body. There's many places that they may have tanks in which they can be submerged with ideally chill water or cold water just to start decreasing the body temperature. There's a general concern many times that you have to bring down the temperature slowly, and because it may get a rebound effect or something like that, but that can immediately increase the temperature for a few seconds, but the submersion and the active decreasing of the body temperature is the most important part at this point. This is a life-threatening event, and these are life-saving efforts what we need to do for them. Mentions fan the body. We don't have anywhere to submerge them or put them in a tank or anything like that, but at least, you know, try to bring down the temperature as much as possible. Never leave them unattended. Many things can happen, as you see in the other part. They can be seizures, they can be many other things, and if it's too severe, it can also produce your heart to stop. In those cases, you need to provide CPR in order to bring them back. Yes, sir.
When you're talking about putting them in a tank, so that shock aspect, it won't really affect their system.
No, I mean, at that point, what's causing the problem is the elevated temperatures. It needs to be brought back down. Even in the hospital, there are many other drastic measures that need to be taken in order to cool them off. But I mean, it's not like you're going to be having a tank with a lot of ice to submerge them. So slowly but surely, everything will work out. You need to bring it down from 105 or sometimes even higher. We also have other things that are milder, if we can call it like that, heat exhaustion, in which they start developing the symptoms of this heat concern: headaches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, or extreme fatigue. They cannot walk, they are very shaky, and that's about to start muscle cramp due to the same condition. And the treatment will be basically the same. Remove them from the heated environment, put them in a shady area, and give them plenty of fluids. One of the recommendations, and we're going to probably see it in a little bit further down, is they should be drinking enough water regularly. Every 15, 20 minutes, a cup of water or any other fluid that they may have available, and ideally mix them with some electrolytes. All these sports drinks that are good for that, and they can be chilled, they can be cold, and so they should be doing this regularly.
Yes. I have a question from the chat, Dr. Bichara, and the question is, you kind of covered it. Does the water need to be room temperature or cold, or does it not matter?
If it's in the preventative state, it doesn't really matter because your body is going to be able to regulate with that. However, if it's cold, it's much better to control rest.
And somebody else, give plenty of fluids. I thought it needed to be in small amounts, which is kind of what you referred to.
Like a cup.
15-minute intervals, a cup every 15 minutes.
Correct, exactly. Yes. Then we have heat cramps that this is covered a little bit before. Whenever you sweat, as you may all know, we don't only lose water, we lose electrolytes, salts, sodium, potassium, and other electrolytes. So they also need to be replenished, because that's the other part of it. If you drink just simple water, it doesn't have enough electrolytes, and the lower in sodium, the decrease in potassium can also lead you to cramps. So that's why we have all these sports drinks for sports athletes that they should not be just drinking free water. Again, this is another statement about it. Water must be taken every 15-20 minutes in very hot environments. Heat collapse or fainting. This may be confused with a heat stroke, and that's why the person should not be unattended. And I think as part of the safety, we should all know and look for whether that person is breathing and if they have a pulse, right? But, you know, it should be taken in the same consideration. Somebody is fainting in a very hot environment, remove them from the hot environment, take them to the shady area, try to fan the body to decrease the body temperature, giving some room for them to breathe, and check those vital signs that are at least minimal. Many times it can be due to the dehydration, and so the decrease in circulatory normal circulation in the body. So normal, we need to do what we have heard and we've seen before. They should have the legs risen. That increases the blood flow to the chest, increases the blood flow to the air, to the heart that's going to be pumping. That's pretty much it in that regard. And obviously look for all other symptoms like that. The heat rash, this is a little more common. This is where we see areas of the skin of the employees that have been exposed to the sun. Usually there are more in friction areas as well. It's a vasodilation syndrome that happens generally in these cases. Sometimes it's a rash secondary for the sweat. It should resolve in a cold environment, at least temporarily. Some creams can be used if you have them, or at least just decrease the body temperature. If this is left unattended, it can very easily lead to an infection due to the moisture and what happens in the area. And the heat fatigue, I think we didn't cover this before, but this is when a new employee has never been working in a very hot environment, or somebody that is known to work in a hot environment, goes on vacation, gets out of this, is going different activities, and then it comes back. There has to be a period in which they get accustomed to that heat exchange. And it can be done within a week at at intervals of increasing the exposure to the heat. And as it says here, usually in a worker unaccustomed to working in heat, it's usually temporary, and it can provide certain conditions, or it will give symptoms of switch of the blood flow from the brain and many other body parts. So as I said, the gradual adjustment to hot environment can prevent the development of this. And this is what I was mentioning, how to acclimate to heat. Well, gradual exposure, 50%, 60%, probably 20% each time until they meet the goal of what they're supposed to be doing, or what they're supposed to be exposed on a regular basis. And reacclimatize the workers who have been on leisure or an extended leave or doing different other activities. How to prevent it? As I mentioned, fluid replacement, trying to make sure that the environment is not extremely hot, but if they have to be, use all the protective gear that they may need. Training constantly to the employees, the supervisors, and all the teams that are around them. And the body system, as I said, all the people in the team, they should know what are the different life savings maneuvers that need to be done, and how to identify when one of their teammates may be having one of those episodes. Fluid replacement, ample supply of cool water should be given in the area. As I said, it can be room temperature, but ideally chill. Encouraging workers to drink small amounts, 1 cup every 20 minutes, as we mentioned. And we know that we always have employees that they can keep pushing it and they know their limits, but we still need to tell them, you need to do it, not just wait until you're thirsty. Because being thirsty is just your body response of saying, we don't have enough fluid, right? We need to get hydrated. And that is kind of a sign of alarm. We're not preventing, we're treating at that time. There's a misconception of using salt tablets, but those are not recommended. That causes a shift in water inside of our body, but what we need to do is to get more water inside. Again, prevention, control the environment. I think you already know this and do everything. Increase ventilation, air conditioners whenever possible, fans or ventilators, some insulation and protective equipment. Limit use of power tools and relieve the workers for different shifts, give them a break so they can have a little bit of going into a shady area, rest, recuperate, and then go back. That's pretty much it.
Question.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I was as compared to say the salt tablets
Mhm.
in order to make it, but that's not the same as electrolytes tablets.
No,
Or
sometimes it could be, but the problem is that in those salt tablets, you're only trying to correct an electrolyte imbalance. And usually salt tablets is only sodium. And you may be losing sodium and potassium, and you don't know exactly the ratio that they need to go with water. So if you do a lot of tablet salts, as I said, that's gonna produce a shift in the water inside of our body. And what we need is to get more water in. So can it work? Maybe if they're drinking the right amount of water. If they're not, should avoid it and use sports drinks.
Thank you.
Yeah. So training, different entities provide training for the employees, the supervisors, and the teams. We need to know what are the hazards of heat stress, recognizing the factors that can lead to that, being aware of what are the first aid procedures in this case. And, you know, we would like to give you more and what else to do, but the reality is what you need to do is to bring the temperature down as fast as possible. Make sure that if they're unconscious, they are not left unattended, and be cautious if there is loss of the circulatory process, a cardiopulmonary event, the heart stops beating, they stop breathing, that they can initiate CPR while you're already calling some help to the place. Know employee responsibilities and avoid the heat stress, know the dangers, and whenever they have medical conditions, to try to make sure and instill into them that they need to be seen by their primary care doctor and have all of that under control. That's definitely outside of your control, but being giving these recommendations constantly, that is very important. Again, protective clothing, and know the purpose and advantages of the participation of the employees in environmental surveillance programs. The management, this is just a summary. As I said, everything is in those 5 slides. It's just remove them from the heat as soon as you can, put them in a shady area or somewhere where they're not exposed to the sun. These I like to make kind of an example. It's like when you, some people may think, okay, let's treat them right now because they're fainting, they're giving some air, but they may be in a heat exposed area still. And this is like when you leave your cell phone in the front of your car whenever it's like at noon. Even if you're on the air conditioner or whatever, it's exposed directly to the sun or to the heat, it will stop working, you know. And so that will happen with all of us at any given point in time. That's the importance of removing them from the heat and taking them to another place, ideal to perform all the first aid that you need to do. Drinking commercial replacement drinks, and do not leave unattended and seek medical attention immediately. If it's a mild problem, some cramps, some stuff like that, probably you don't need to do much, just wait it out, give them the electrolyte replacement and some cold water, or, you know, whatever, you can submerge them if you have any tubs or anything. But I would recommend to call immediately some help if it needs to be done. These are sources where the information you can find of all of this. Again, it's more preventative than anything else, because the treatment, it's very limited to what you can do. Certain other maneuvers to cool down the body can be done in a hospital setting, which are definitely more invasive. But this is what we got for now. I don't know if you have any more questions, any concerns.
Yep, I got a question from the chat, and it was relative to the sports drinks. Is there a ratio between water and sports drinks, or is just get as many of either as you can into the first?
Yes, it's either or. That's completely fine.
Okay, great.
They're supposed to be balanced, and they should have everything that they need for that period of time.
Any other questions? Are there any scenarios that maybe you face that you think would be valuable to share with our members?
So we see, I mean, in urgent care, we don't really see much. There's a limited amount of things that can actually be done in an urgent care setting. If they're very severe dehydration or fainting or the heart stops, they actually need to be taken to the hospital. I've seen situations in which they need to be brought to the hospital with put some tubes in there, cold water chilled in to decrease the body temperature in the stomach especially. That's why, you know, the idea of drinking cold fluids will definitely help. You are cooling off the body from the outside and you're cooling it from the inside as well. So that will definitely improve the temperature of that person.
How dangerous it is to create the sports drinks to energy drinks? I see a lot of people drinking Red Bull or Monster.
That's a great question. So, and also here in South Florida, you see them drinking a lot of coffee as well. So caffeine can increase the heart rate and also that increased body heat. So it's kind of the same type of thing with medical conditions and being overweight or whatnot. That is not ideal. And also the taurine and the caffeine, they're also diuretics, or basically they decrease the amount of water. They make you go to the bathroom more, so they cause dehydration. So that is more dangerous than helpful. So if they do it that constantly, they also need to be replenishing their water in another way. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Last slide you mentioned potential soaking someone's clothing. Is there a specific part of the body that should be targeted?
Ideally, everything but the core, you know, the chest, the head, and the abdomen. That could be the ideal parts. Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. I don't have any questions online. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? Great. Dr. Bichara, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll make the slides available for you all afterwards. And obviously, Dr. Bichara is with the team over at Concentra. They're a fantastic member. So if you guys want to get in touch with the folks at Concentra, please feel free to let us know, and we'll be sending their contact information along in the follow-up email
Thank you very much.
to today's event. Thanks, Dr. Bichara. Great. So I want to thank you all again for those of you who came in person and those of you who are online joining us today. Thank you all very much. Just a quick final thank you to our team at Milwaukee. Thank you for your title sponsorship, Kelly Cronenberg, Safe Ride Solutions, and our hosts here at Styles Construction. Thank you all very much. I also want to thank the members of our safety committee, Deborah Hampton, Ian Schwartz, Jose Bobadilla, Mark Leon, Enrique Sequeira, and Brian Cardona. Congratulations, Mr. Cardona. So I look forward to seeing you all next month at our next safety session and hopefully at one of our upcoming events. So don't miss out. Thank you all very much and have a great afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Please help yourself to some bagels and coffee. Thanks.